Let me tell you why I think that iridology and sclerology should be taught together. I really do. They complement each other perfectly. Iridology tells you a lot about your genetics and the history of your body from the time you're born to this very day. It is very, very slow in responding. The next one are deposits that happen in the eye. And these happen either on top of or right underneath the sclera. And there's only two of them. There's something called a pinguecula. And that means you're not digesting fats. I used to call it a fat bubble before I learned about sclerology. It's kind of like cellulite in the sclera of the eye. You know how you get that ugly cellulite in places like top of your legs and stuff like that, the upper legs? Well, that's what it is, but it shows up in the eye as well. Then there's something called a pterygium. A pterygium is tissue growth, and they say it happens because of irritants like wind and sun and stuff like that. But I also see it in people who work in offices and don't work out in the sun or the wind. And usually it's because of a pH. Any kind of irritant can cause a pterygium to grow. What a pinguecula looks like is, like I said, cellulite in the the sclera of the eye. And here is one. I still usually call it fat bubble when I talk to people. Because if I say you got a fat bubble there, they'll say, well, how did I get a fat bubble in my eye? And I'll say, well, you're not digesting fats properly. And that makes sense to them. If you use the word pinguecula, they don't really know what you're talking about. Here's another one. This one's harder to see. You might have to look to the side, but right there's one. Right here's one. Again, it's hard to see. But these are these is what they usually look like. So for that, you can give high lipase, chickweed, and definitely work with the liver. Because if the liver and the gallbladder were doing their jobs, you would digest your fats properly. The next one is a pterygium. Okay, is it still a pinguecula if it's partially over the iris? No. Usually that's a pterygium. I have never personally seen a pinguecula go over the iris of the eye. Never. So I think that's a pterygium. It looks somewhat the same, but it always has blood vessels feeding it. So if you see something like this is not a pinguecula, it's a pterygium. That was a really good question. Here's another one. It's very thin, but you can see how it's like a membrane or a growth. And again, it's supplied with a lot of, it's extra tissue. And that tissue needs to have circulation, so it will have blood vessels going through it. Here's another one. Now the pinguecula, or the fat bubble, doesn't need circulation. The pterygium does. And look at this one. I've known people that they go to the doctor and they'll cut it out, and it grows back, and they cut it out. So if they correct their pH or whatever's irritating the eye, then it won't grow back anymore. Matter of fact, my son-in-law had one, and it was about, probably about this big. And when he corrected his pH, cutting out soda, eating raw vegetables and fruits, it's now probably like this. You can barely still see it, but all the worst part of it's gone. But again, as you can see here, it has blood vessels feeding it. That's the main way you can tell the difference between the pterygium and the pinguecula.